So dudes, nobody plays Doc correctly. Now, that is a statement to get your attention, because that's something that I could say if it was 2017. I remember thinking Echo spawn peeking with ACOG was selfish, because what if you died on the top floor of Consulate with a perfectly good Echo drone never to be used for its intended purpose, to plant deny at the late stage of the round? Nowadays, I still think going for a deep spawn peek roam with Echo is a little silly, when you could just do it with Rook or Doc, but these days I don't really care about it as much. Not because I think you should spawn peek with Echo, but because my understanding of the game has changed a little bit. And roaming anchors aren't necessarily a bad or an uncommon thing these days. In fact, they're so common that I'm starting to wonder just how many anchors are there in the game, really? Sometimes roamers get repurposed into anchors, but Warden, when he was released, was designed purely as a sight anchor, shotgun and SMG-12 in hand, and then he became a fragger with an ACOG SMG. Ultimately, free armors make a lot of noise, and they may not be as suited to deep roams like Vigil. By game design, they're not necessarily going to fall in that category all the time, but they do frequently. This might be where the arguments for the TDM meta are coming from, and where I believe another more crucial argument about how gameplay design might not necessarily fix the quote-unquote problem, because I don't think there's a problem to fix here. I'm talking about what I've perceived as the slow creeping death of the sight anchor, who isn't dead, but I'd go as far to call them an endangered species. A sight anchor is a concept not unique but relatively contained to Rainbow Six Siege. Its contemporary and closest comparison in 2015, Counter-Strike, put the responsibility of fighting to defend the bomb site specifically when needed, down to player choice. Rainbow Six Siege was kind of unique in 2015 for codifying that gameplay role into character design, the dedicated sight anchor. A character that had a kit specifically to defend the bomb site with. Smoke is a great example of one of Siege's more golden, unrusting classic designs, and having a comparable peer in the form of Mute was a smart way to repurpose his gunfighting kit, along with an iconic elite skin, of course. An iconic elite skin you can buy using my new creator code. This video was sponsored by Ubisoft. If you go to the link in the description and use my code GGE at checkout, I'll receive a small portion of the sale for whatever elite skin in the link you purchase. Once again, go to the link in the description, pick an elite of your choice, and use GGE at checkout. Thanks to Ubisoft for sponsoring. Back on the subject of Smoke. His shotgun is a rare exception to the one-shot headshot power differential. You have to work harder to kill Smoke if you swing a doorway while he's holding it with a shotgun. You must hit him in the head. But he has a much easier shot to hit at center mass, and the ability to play like a trapdoor spider off of your footstep noise. Smoke's shotgun gives him tactical and strategic advantages at the same time. To counterbalance the shotgun having such a specific job, his SMG-11 can fry at a variety of ranges, but it has a small magazine and requires good crosshair placement. His gadget is a time waster and a plant denial device. Smoke, in my opinion, is an iconic class study, not just in Siege's design, but in comp shooter design, period. He is proof that you can make a hero shooter without the pigeonholing feeling that often comes with it. He has qualities about his gameplay loop that are unique, without feeling forced. A player will naturally gravitate towards the sight anchor role of Smoke, rather than feel obligated to play the sight anchor role of Smoke like filling a balance sheet. Siege, whether it pisses people off or not, has influenced the comp shooter genre significantly. I'm 100% certain that Valorant does not release with so-called sentinels, basically its equivalent of defensive sight anchors or attacking flank watchers, without the existence of Rainbow Six Siege. I mean, just look at Cypher's camera ability. He's practically made for Siege players. Valorant locks the player into a particular set of tasks more specifically than Siege. But what I like about Siege is the modularity from round to round, and the stipulation that you can do whatever you want throughout the course of a 30-minute game, even if that means playing the same operator over and over again. But you have the option of playing a different operator every once in a while. And if you think people haven't roamed with Smoke before, I have some Pox Unlock videos to show you. Siege has roles, but they're not rigid. You can adapt to whatever situation with whatever you want. That's what I like about this game. Don't forget Smoke has a conventional SMG primary if that's something that you want to run. Smoke is a common pick because of fun, enticing reasons. The shotgun is fun to use up close. It's satisfying to get those one-pump kills. But you can have fun and help your team at the same time. It's not one or the other. This yin and yang interplay between anchors and roamers on defense and fraggers and hard breachers on attack was what made the Siege ecosystem function for many years. But even as far back as 2017, Siege players would still take advantage of one-shot headshot and an ACOG to make some risky, exciting plays. And they would bring smoked SMG-11 to the top floor of a building to shoot you from a million miles away. This was an example of not playing Smoke as a site anchor that goes back several years. Smoke ended up being the first battle in the war against ACOGs, and over the course of many years, the ACOG ended up needing a laundry list of rules to be considered fair. ACOGs were okay on attackers because they had the disadvantage of attacking. ACOGs on defense were okay as long as it was on a fat operator that couldn't bolo peek everybody to death on a powerful weapon. ACOGs were okay on low recoil guns as long as they didn't have high damage. Actually, just kidding, that's overpowered. We took those away. Actually, only site anchors can have ACOGs, but some site anchors have too much stuff, so we can't let them have an ACOG. We'll add the mini ACOG. Oh shit, wait, now we've just created a bunch of more balancing problems. Fuck, oh shit, oh fuck. And then we took that away, and now we're back to ACOGs again. Well, as it turns out, only some site anchors can have ACOGs, but they have to be on a TCSG or on a Vector. These guys can have an ACOG because their utility isn't as good, sort of. Over the course of many years, we've gone full circle over the mountain and through the woods to Ubisoft's house we go on the subject of how much site anchor is too much site anchor to have an ACOG or not. Sometimes site anchors are forced to play on site by virtue of their gameplay loop alone, like Mira. Allocating her resource too far away from the site is too risky. But as it turns out, the more roamy anchors, if you want to call them that, seem to be the ones who have an ACOG versus ones like Mira who don't. Those roamy anchors can play off site and peek you from the other side of the building because they're slow and loud, and we just kind of accept that they're taking that risk of being slow and loud and having a hard time flanking. Now, if you're on with Mira, you're throwing. I think, maybe you're getting content, who knows? Doc, as we've discussed, is currently the most played defender in the game, and I'm sure we can figure out exactly why. He has the Ash R4C ACOG of defense, the MP5 ACOG. It is a high rate of fire gun with minimal recoil that rewards good shot placement and doesn't get in your way. Low recoil plus rate of fire equals forever pick and ranked. This is the argument we've been having since 2020. And yet I can't help but wonder how much of it is the game's design versus human nature. I don't know if it's even really worth to try limiting the roaming potential of site anchors, or to really make such a clear demarcation between roamers and anchors at all. Because the longer you play the game, the more you kind of understand that it's all relative. In Siege, everyone can do every job. Some operators just have more use cases for certain jobs than others. It's oddly analogous to tank development. Like you had light tanks and medium tanks and heavy tanks, and they all had specific job descriptions. And then World War II passed and everybody was like, oh, wait a minute, missiles? Well, shit. Well, we might as well just make one tank. Like, it is strangely similar, right? Attackers now have all of these offensive options to deal with the armor, quote unquote, of defense. Ash charges, Zof charges, nades, Gonsex, EMPs. And after a while, the defense just kind of did what you had to do, which is get aggressive and get mobile. Point being, in Siege, everyone can do every job. Some operators just have more use cases for certain jobs than others. By virtue of one-shot headshot, just about any operator can take any gunfighting circumstance should the need arise. I'm afraid that I'm guilty of taking anchors out of their native habitat often, appropriating them as an invasive species into the roamer ecosystem. That's because ultimately Siege is a game about adapting to the situation that you're in. I want to describe an example in which I did this very thing, when I used an operator that's typically used as a site anchor for a roaming flank. In this clip, I'm having a rough game. I'm getting sleepy, it's been a long day, and I'm running out of aim juice. And a different player 8 years ago would not have done this play. I would have turtled in sight and hoped for the best. But I've been playing Siege long enough to know that 2 minutes on the clock on Clubhouse in a low man count situation for the defense is not good. This is a site that's easy to pick apart when enough information is gathered, because when the attack realizes where the defenders are positioned, they can flood through one of the 3 hatches and fan out the pressure where they need it, forcing cutoffs and making it impossible for the defenders to really help each other. wasting time is really important on Clubhouse Basement. The hatch drop should be a gamble play for the attack, not a guaranteed opportunity for map control. Seeing this movie before, I go for a slow roam, not because I want to, but because we need it. Melusi is loud. I know this is a considerable gamble, but I still feel that it needs to be done, because it's not a reasonable expectation in a ranked game to demand a roam from a random when they're preoccupied with something else. The decision to make this gamble is solely on me. I was a little bit nervous doing this, so I didn't check my corners for drones. You should really make that a habit, by the way. Regardless, I have the advantage of surprise, since this guy jumped down the hatch without checking for a flanker. I push a little bit more and get a pick opportunity on somebody not paying attention. Then I get a follow-up pick on the person trying to trade me out.
Pushing bar door, bathroom door. Top main stairs now, going down. It's Nook on main stairs, going down to basement. Just playing in the middle part. Peeking bar.
And then I get traded out afterward, but my impact to the round has been sealed. Even if I get traded out here and die, I've gotten 2 picks for my life, which is 100% worth it. This is a good, impactful play. And I did it on a character that normally isn't suited to it. I know that at one point Melusi was a roamer, even though her gadget was probably more suited to that of a sight anchor, and that's probably why she was repurposed into a sight anchor. 4 crowd controlling tools to make it more difficult to walk into the bomb site that can be capitalized on for an easy pick is not something a roamer would typically use, unless the trap is throwable and easily followed up on, like Ella's mines. Melusi was also given a shotgun to round out an anchoring kit. The thing is, several operators in the game are given quote-unquote anchoring kits for sight setup and direct sight gunfighting, but they'll still go for a deep roam. Doc has a bailiff that is intended for sight setup, but he is still very much a gunner operator where people play him for his high kill potential. And Azami, for instance, is really useful on Clubhouse Basement because of her ability to keep it off the hatch angles. She can also run an ACOG on an ACS-12 and play like a sight anchor. So what makes you a sight anchor? What makes you a roamer? Well, it depends on what you are doing. If you're playing in the site, you are an anchor. If you're roaming, you're roaming. And you can do that on anyone. It doesn't matter who. And it's gotten to the point where I've seen some people comment on Doc's roaming ways and the players associated with him as an indictment. A new toxic gunner main crests the siege and seas, and thy name is Rick. Okay, it's been 10 years. We've all been here before. Here's the new ACOG ranked gunner. Time to nerf him, right? As usual, I've always advocated for a model of balancing that doesn't emphasize nerfs as much as buffs. But I think I may have an explanation for Doc and many sight anchors and their inclination to not anchor. I don't think it has anything to do with Ubisoft or balancing or mechanical design. I don't think it even has anything to do with the so-called quote-unquote TDM meta, which has been kind of debunked. I think roaming Doc, first of all, has always kind of been here, and second of all, is happening more on its own now. I'll use the world's favorite sport of soccer, sorry, I meant to call it something else, zebra ball, to explain it. One interesting thing to note about soccer is that its principles of map control can be roughly correlated with a competitive shooter like Counter-Strike, but in essence there is a yo-yoing effect between aggressive, shot-heavy styles of play and defensive, possession-heavy styles of play. Morocco at the Qatar World Cup shocked everybody by eliminating Portugal and subsequently Cristiano Ronaldo's chance for a clash of the Titans with Lionel Messi. And the way that Morocco did this was by using an intricately tuned system of allocating different players to different parts of the field depending on certain conditions. The crux of the Moroccan defense would essentially force the opposing team to make aggressive, far-reaching long passes up and over the heads of the stalwart middle of the pitch, because they couldn't get through the middle of the pitch. It was too well defended. When the opposing team's gamble pass didn't work, Morocco would aggressively force the ball up the pitch the opposite way with the manpower they'd allocated on that side of the field. Basically, they would bait the opponent into making a bad pass and then punish them for their mistake. In soccer terms, they were waiting outside the building and waiting for you to peek. And yeah, like, it's fucking annoying, but it works on me. Because on defense, you're supposed to kind of have an idea of what the attackers are doing, right? Otherwise, you can't keep map control. Now, Morocco would eventually get eliminated by France in the end, but they were able to win games against betting favorites without really holding control of the ball that much, in a soccer meta, quote-unquote, that heavily favored that very same thing. As for my non-American viewers, don't worry, that's the last time you'll ever hear me use the word soccer. For now. This is just one example of how metas can shift in sports without any new content per se. If Rainbow Six Siege had remained completely unchanged for 5 years, I have no doubt in my mind people would have eventually discovered that there was more to an anchor's life than sitting in the bomb site all day. Sometimes Rook can spread his wings further and higher than anybody ever expected him to, not because the game is broken, but because over time, humans will discover new shit that they can do in a vacuum. Regardless of Ubisoft's input or any game dev's input, games in general are essentially elaborate psychology exercises. The bulk of your work in the mechanic goes into trying to predict what your player base is going to end up doing with the toys you provide them. That's why there's value in playing the game you're working on frequently if you are a game dev. I asked a simple yes or no question in a community poll concerning the new Flavor of the Month Gunner Operator, and it's not even close. 77% of respondents think Doc is perfectly fine and doesn't need to be touched. Well, dear viewer, chat, if you will, I happen to agree with you. The reason players use gunner characters, as it was true in 2019 and in 2020, 2022, etc., has always been because this game has one-shot headshot and rewards good mechanical skill. Fucking too much with the formula produces outcomes that are not beneficial to anyone, smartly so in a game with a tactically impactful mechanic, as one-shot headshot. Rainbow Six Siege has been modified over the course of the past couple of years to be made into a game that has a deliberate tactical and curated design. Every action has meaning and weight behind it, and sometimes all it takes to win a round is an Uber Doc or a self-revive at the right time. Remember Withstand? Remember how everybody was upset when Zofia lost it? Doc using it on himself seems like a pretty smart way to repurpose that mechanic, huh? What do you guys think of the forever roaming meta? Let me know in the comments, and if this video raised your Siege IQ, subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Deuces.